Dear friends, this is the first Uposatha Sila program of the Vasa period. So our community, Dhammadharini, has entered into the 3-month period of Vasa when we are making the vow to stay in one place. And we are also making the determination to upgrade the level of our practice, to become more mindful, more conscientious, more careful, to study and reflect, to give more time to our practice. The donors who I think, if not here at the moment, will be with us for part of this day. The donors gave us encouragement to have Uposatha Sila program. And this is a very traditional form that we at least see at the Sri Lankan temples. I'm not sure about all of the various national traditions. So I visited the pages of some other Sri Lankan temples to see what's the customary format for this kind of program. And so that's what we're doing today. We started with adopting the, taking on the precepts, setting our determination to observe the 8 monastic precepts, in other words, to keep excellent morality, and as well to reduce and simplify by eliminating some of the opportunities for luxury and distraction. After this talk, we're going to have a break, and then we're going to be offering the Buddha Puja, which is very traditional, offering the meal to the monastics, and we're going to be coming back in the afternoon for continuing with our meditation and talks. So the afternoon program is going to be going on between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock this afternoon, California time. The theme that we've adopted for ourselves, for our community, for this Vasa is called Pachavekana, which has the meaning to reflect. It seems to be a rather simple idea to understand it, but it's quite challenging to do it. Easy to understand, but if you actually did this constantly through all of your actions and all the different situations that you encounter in life, what a tremendous difference it would make. So in the teaching that the Buddha gave to his son Rahula in the mango grove, Rahula was a small child of 7 years old who had apparently been had told a fib or told some kind of a falsehood, and the Buddha gave him a kind of a stern lecture about the consequences of telling an untruth. Even for myself, they talk, sometimes they talk about what's they say it's a gateway drug. So that first one starts to smoke cigarettes or something, and that's like a gateway drug, and the next thing you know, they're using marijuana, and then next thing you know, they're a heroin addict or something like that, because they started with the gateway drug, and then it got worse and worse from there. So to me, in a lot of ways, among the faults or the the harmful actions that a person could take, falsehood is in a certain way the gateway, isn't it? Because if a person is willing to lie, then they're willing to undertake all the other kinds of bad behavior and try to cover it up if they're not ashamed to tell a lie. But if they're committed to complete honesty, then if they do anything wrong, they would be compelled to acknowledge it. And in that case, their awareness of the opinions of their wise companions who they respect would be a powerful deterrent. So you just wouldn't, you would be so ashamed to have to acknowledge doing a wrongdoing. And if you did wrongdoings again and again, it would be like quite embarrassing. And so that helps. So the honesty helps us to find clarity with our ethics. When I was young, before I became a Buddhist, I didn't mind killing a mosquito. If the mosquito would bite me, I would just kill it. And then later, when I got into a monastic form, where as a bhikkhuni is like mandatory to acknowledge when killing. And so then, without thinking about it, I killed a mosquito, and then I had to go to my teacher and confess. And then the very same evening, I killed another mosquito. It was like, I had to undertake powerful reprogramming of this habit that had been going on for so many years of just unconsciously being inconsiderate about the life of insects. And so that was one particular one that I had not fully addressed at that time. And then honesty meant that it was necessary to do what was necessary to overcome that. And then there's a further way that honesty is the gateway to all other kinds of unskillful and harmful behaviors. And that is that it's a quality of the human being that we have this capacity for deception. It's part of the survival techniques. One of the ways that we can survive in the world and not get, killed or harmed by our enemy is because we can trick them somehow. And so we have the natural ability to be deceptive, but part of the way that works is we deceive ourselves first. And then having deceived ourselves, then it's easier to have a innocent looking face while we're deceiving others. Okay, so there's a question. I'm going to take it.
Being silent instead of speaking the truth, or just by silence.
Patipada has asked about deception or dishonesty by being silent when one should speak. When you have a family or any kind of a group, a community, a business, a courtroom, any kind of situation where we're trying to move from the unskillful to the skillful, it is very often the case that before speaking with anger and emotions, a person would just shut up and repress the speech and go quiet. And I had the training that no speech is better than bad speech. But then skillful speech is much better than no speech. So being quiet, actually, it is an option. So if you are hiding a refugee in your basement and the police come and say, do you have any refugees in the house? Rather than telling a lie, you could be silent. And it's always an option that a person has to be silent. However, some things should be spoken about, and this depends on the norms of the family or the community that one is in. So if the people to whom you're speaking have enough strength and stability that you can speak honestly to them and they're able to take it and they're able to make use of that information, then you should speak to them honestly. But if that person is unbalanced or weak in some way, then you might choose not to speak. So we have the opportunity to pick our battles. Even the Buddha, sometimes he would criticize the faults of some of the trainees, the disciples, but then there's another trainee who has a lot of faults and the Buddha doesn't criticize them. And they say, why are you criticizing me? I'm comparatively good, but there's this one and they're a mess, but you never don't criticizing them. And it's because their faith is weak. And so if I was to criticize every time they do something unskillful, they would quit. So in order to give them a chance to develop, out of compassion, I hold back. See, so it's to be silent as a kind of evasion when it's proper to speak is not skillful. So when it's the right time, one should speak. Yeah. There's one idea that I wanted to especially get across this morning that I hope you can ponder about over the next bit of time. And that is reflecting is about one's intention. One's intention has to do with what kind of karma a person is creating. So if you have a skillful intention, you're creating wholesome karma, which is going to tend to lead to happiness in this life and happiness in the future. And doing something with a bad intention, a harmful intention, unskillful intention will tend to lead to pain and suffering. Even if something is difficult to do, if it's the skillful thing to do, you can do it with confidence that this is going to lead to long-term happiness. And then even if you want to do something, if it's the unskillful thing to do, if you know that it's going to lead to suffering later on, then you should not do it, right? But there are so many ways that a normal person cuts corners all the time, like having made an effort for a certain amount of time and worked and been present and engaged in, with being skillful and ethical and trying to developing one's practice, working to support social harmony, then it could be at the end of the day, you just want to kick back and veg out. I know for me, I used to work a 9-to-5 job, and there's something that comes over me at 5 o'clock. It's been like many years, decades, since I was working a 9-to-5 job. But nevertheless, something comes back at me at 5 o'clock, says, "Oh, let me just be sloppy, for a while and just relax." But then one should think, like, if you're tempted to like look at some entertainment or watch a show or doing something like that, what are you doing? What's really going on there? Are you running away from the things that you want to be looking at? And even if you don't have a computer or don't have an internet, you could like to kick back and go into like daydreams or fantasies or just sleeping or something like that. Any kind of a number of ways that you would be saying, I've been like fully present and mindful and aware of the present moment, and now I'm going to run away from reality for a little while. Danger. So if we are trying to do this practice of mindful reflection, we would consider, like, when this moment comes, okay, what's really beneficial? Is this for my benefit because I need to have that relaxation of, like, not being too tense with my effort, and I need to have some relaxing in order to mindfully just be aware of what it's like in a more relaxed way? Or is it something that I'm wanting to run away and hide out and not be mindful? When speaking to another human being, are you just thinking, what's the problem of the moment? You need to speak because something has to happen right now, and or they're doing it the wrong way, and we got to make a correction or something like that. So, like, what's more important, to cause the activity, or something's happening in the kitchen and they're doing it the wrong way, so don't put it there, put it there. Okay, so is it more important to have the kitchen be run exactly the right way, or is it more important to pause a minute, be aware, what's for the benefit, what's going to be not harmful to that other person and also not harmful to myself? Is that person in a place where the training is good for them? Or are they in a place where they need some kindness, that they need some to be acknowledged and treated with a kind of a deference and respect? So that kind of constant reflection, it would mean that we are keeping our awareness of what our intention is. And if our intention is a skillful intention, then we should go ahead with it. And if our intention is something that's actually not so skillful, then, we should pause. So there's two parts of this practice of reflection, this practice of Paccavekkhana. The first part is setting up an intention. So when we took the precepts this morning, we were setting up the intention to follow those standards. When we did the meditation on kindness this morning, we were setting up the intention of kindness, both for ourselves and for others. Then the second part of reflection is the feedback loop. So having set up that intention, did that intention stick or did it fall down? Is the action that I'm doing working out according to my good intention? Or is it having some kind of like a side effect, some kind of a result that's not so good? Or even reflecting afterwards. This is the feedback loop. Okay, I was trying to be helpful, but it turned into a big mess. So then we should reflect retrospectively about it and say, well, would there be a way not to make that mess again, to refrain from whatever the mistake or the slip was that caused things to go the wrong way. So that reflection before, during, or afterwards is has to be done in the context of, in the first place, you set up the good intention. Now I'm here at the Dhamma-Dharini Monastery in Pengrove, and I've had the opportunity of speaking with various visitors and residents in our community, and also speaking with some of the students who have been coming to us on Zoom. And more and more, it appears to me that many people have got areas of vulnerability. They have the internal karmic knots that they still may be struggling with even after a long time, that whoever is not yet enlightened still has got work to do. And it's apparent that being in an intentional community like a monastery, it's so beautiful to be able to allow persons to show both their strength and their vulnerability, and to at least support them insofar as listening with sympathy, and then when possible, if we can connect the situation of a person with something in the Dhamma and say, well, there's this part of the Dhamma is the good medicine that could be brought to this particular moment of vulnerability. And we do that for each other, and also those who got appointed to be a teacher may be speaking to many different people, but we also do this for our colleagues, for anybody who's that Kalyanamitta, that good friend. The good friend who's the one who has the good desire for our spiritual success, for our success in the practice, and for who is able to listen, who is able to point out our faults and shortcomings at the right time in the right way, which is gentle, has that gentle and kindness and that good wish. And as well, the person who is able to keep our secrets so that then we can tell them anything. So when we feel, it could be some distress or some upset or some emotion or something, there's something in us which is not a perfect manifestation of how it ought to be, but it's just as what we got right now is in some kind of like a turmoil or a distress or an upset or imperfection, or then we can't overcome them unless we can see them. And even like if within us we have got some negativity, if we have anxiety, hatred, depression, sorrow, even self-hatred, those negative thoughts or negative emotions ought to be treated in a certain way, in a very kind way. It's like as if that part of ourselves is a person who needs to be heard, which is sympathetic here, has to be able to speak clearly. So we have to allow, in some ways, our internal negativities to speak clearly and be heard clearly. But then our right intention is to be seeking for, what's the good medicine that negativity can become tranquilized, become calmed down, become weaker and weaker, can be transformed through purification into something which is wholesome and beneficial. And so that's the progress. So good intention, it's not like something that's a simple-minded teaching for 7-year-old children only. This is a teaching for all of us all along the path until we reach the goal, that we have to undertake in a clear way. This is our right thought, the first step, the Samma Sankappa, the second step of the Noble Eightfold Path. My intention is not harming. My intention is renunciation or generosity. My intention is kindness or non-ill will. And then knowing in a real way, something that's realistic and simple, knowing how these ideals can manifest in my life today, right now, here and now, where I am, with the situation and the circumstance that I'm in now. And then making that determination. And then trying to keep it alive as continuously as possible. At least when we get up in the morning and before we go to sleep at night, doing that review and that resetting of the intention. And then hopefully at many moments during the day, bringing up the mirror and say, well, where's my intention right now? Is it what I intended this morning, or has it gone into something else? And then looking at our actions and seeing if our actions are the most skillful manifestation of that. Now, my belief is that a lot of times we have a mixture of intentions. Partly, we want to be good. Partly, we want to be good. We want to obtain enough liberation. We want to obtain the goals of this practice, and we want to not cause any harm to anyone. But it's also true that partly we're greedy, partly we're angry, and partly we're deluded. And so we could have a mixture of intentions at any given point of time. Some of our intentions are coming from greed, coming from anger, coming from delusion. And I don't think it's usually the case that says, I meant well, but it turned out badly. Actually, I think what was really happening is I had a mixture of intentions, and some of my intentions were, we could say, bad intentions, that I was infected by greed, affected by anger, affected by fear. And to whatever extent those unskillful intentions were present, then our behavior turns out to be not what we want. Likewise, if there's some like really difficult and thorny and challenging circumstance, it even could be some potential interpersonal situation, and you don't really know how to take care of that circumstance. To the extent that we could really develop the thought of kindness towards that situation, to that extent, the right words will just come. The right actions or the right gestures will just come. They will come naturally, flowing from the intention. So if we can make our intention completely pure, then our actions will follow along, and we won't really have to worry so much about controlling our actions. So doing this feedback loop of reflection, if I did something that was unskillful, that was kind of like a gross manifestation of an unskillful intention. And I can use that gross reflection as an opportunity to investigate, and then by inference or to retrospectively to look back and to examine and say, oh, well, I was being a little bit, frightened right there, or I was being defensive, or I was being greedy, or something like that. So that's how the this feedback loop of right reflection can go on. By some kind of a miracle, we are almost exactly on the schedule that had been announced. So I'm going to invite a 10-minute break, and we can come back in 10 minutes for some meditation.
Oh, can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Thank you. Thanks, Aya. Wonderful talk.
Mm-hmm.
In this regard, what we're talking about, intention, it occurred to me that there's this saying that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I'm wondering, why do they say that? I mean, actually, we Buddhists believe that good intentions will not lead to hell. They'll lead to nibbana, right?
Well, at least they'll lead to heaven. And good intentions plus wisdom could lead to nibbana. There is something about right effort, which is there's a factor of arousing the intention, the Chandanjaneti, and then you got to stir up the energy. And so if you just had an intention, but you didn't bring any energy to it or any strength to it, that intention could be a very weak and thing, and something that could get lost or crushed. And so persons who have good intentions, but they don't know about the importance of effort, then they could, their intentions could be almost just like daydreams or fantasies that don't mature properly into spiritual success, or maturing into the purification of our psychology, or to the good result. And so I think that's, I guess, the kind of good intention that could be paving the road to hell. But that's not a saying, that's not a Buddhist saying, so
Thank you.
yeah. Any other questions right now?
And some of that be about the infection that you're talking about, where you have a good intention, but there may be jealousy, there may be something else underlying the good intention that arises, and then it affects it. So then the outcome isn't what you may expect, because you are not aware of what's affecting that good intention.
Patipada is mentioned in a case where there's a mixture of intentions. So you intend to do something good, but underneath that there's jealousy or something else. And then because of the other intention, which you're not aware of, then that's subverting the good intention. One example that's given is the person who is giving dana at the temple, and they want to be praised and admired, and to be, to become like the big shot in the temple because they give a lot. And so their generosity is polluted by conceit, and it won't have as much of the powerful benefit that generosity has because of being mixed like that. On the other hand, I have noticed that sometimes, well, this is something that happened to me years ago when I was very, okay, I'll admit it. I had a lot of hatred for somebody, and I was trying to get rid of it, but I couldn't get rid of it. I couldn't stop hating on that person. And so then, among the various methods that I tried, one method I tried was to just do them a favor. That, like, I would intentionally do something nice for that person. And it seemed at the time to be sort of phony because my emotions were not on the same track with my action, but actually taking that action of doing something good, despite my emotions being different, was extremely beneficial and therapeutic. It was part of the cure. So, the human mind is a mixture of all kind of things. It's training the mind is like, I guess, herding cats or something, or catching a fish in your hand and trying to, pick it up. So then, what we do, to the extent that we have a good intention, to that extent, it will come to a good result. To some extent, we have a bad intention. To that extent, it will have a bad result.
Working with the condition as it is and trying to change that condition, it takes me back to what you said about the right effort.
Yeah.
And the right energy that needs to be channeled into.
Yeah.
to change that behavior, that perception, that thought, or
Patipada is emphasizing about, I'm saying this for the benefit of the online audience, that it does come back to having the strong energy channeling into that right intention to make it effective. Okay, so I see a hand up. Okay, Ren, here's another question. I've got some of my old students here, and so they are used to being welcoming and having the opportunity to ask questions and make comments. And so thank you, students, for setting that good example.
Thank you,
Ren,
Aya.
yeah.
Thank you, Aya. I really resonated with how starting a small action could be a gateway to deterioration, like such as lying. And I also resonate a lot with using the right intention and skillfully assess the situation. And so being truthful doesn't need to be telling exactly what you think or exactly what honesty, exactly what it is. And an alternative is to not say anything, right? So I really resonated with that because, there's a gentle way and there's a kindness that can be involved in expressing the truth. What I struggle with, and I'm still struggling with, is that what if you're trying to combine all the above with situation where you feel threatened or unsafe, and you know that the other person that you feel threatened from is not coming from a very skillful spot. They're not in a good place. And being silent and not telling the truth might not be the best option. So I know that I'm setting up like an extreme case, but I'm just trying to like fully see if I could understand. In situation like that, do you not say certain lie to save yourself and try to still be skillful, but you think that even the most skillful way will not be able to prevent the other person, unless you tell a lie that they want to hear. So I'm just like, I'm trying to ponder on that.
Well, in an abusive situation, we have to take care of our own safety at whatever level that involves. Sometimes to create a safe situation would involve speaking truth to power. Sometimes creating a safe situation would involve separating ourselves from a dangerous situation, or sometimes a combination. So separate yourself first and then speak the truth to power from a safe distance. I would be good to avoid lying to oneself and to others. It's never going to be helpful to be in a dishonest situation. But I do know that finding some safety, whether having support of one's kalyanamitas or true friends, and being able to come to whatever's necessary at the practical level for safety. And then upon reflection, it could be that that what was perceived as a danger at some other level were not in danger. So like, if I can keep my integrity, even if I'm captured by the enemy and locked up and put in prison and tortured, as long as I'm keeping my integrity, at some kind of level, I'm really safe. My karmic destiny is safe. Or it could be that there's some kind of a sick dynamic between my fearfulness and my defensiveness and my counterparts also being fearful and defensive, and then that fearful defensiveness then matures into mutual anger, and so that it's kind of like happening mutually. And so then if I can find out how to de-escalate, then it will enable my counterpart to also be able to de-escalate like that, so that if I can reframe, or like this is internally or with the help of counseling, being able to realize my inner sense of safety, of not being threatened, then it's possible to discover the most skillful way to proceed in that situation. This is a very real consideration, and I've thought about this a lot, and I do also know that there is a way that people can run away from a threatening situation, or if one has been persecuted or harmed in the past, and then we run away and close the book on that chapter, close that chapter off, then it can leave us being crippled in some way. That in order to really come to our ideal of spiritual growth, if there's a way to fully forgive the person who's harmed us, possibly in a face-to-face communication, or possibly, if that's not possible, within ourselves, but coming to a release and letting go of that. We were in this defensive situation where we walled ourselves off from something that seemed dangerous, and being walled off like that is not a situation for full spiritual growth. What we're aiming for is we're practicing to have a boundless heart. And so that it's ideal if that abusive situation can be completed. I know that I've talked a long time, but I hope that it's appreciated.
Thank you, Aya. It is indeed a very delicate, complicated situations. Sometimes it's really hard to discern between being skillful or being trapped in my own, defilement, mental defilement. Thank you
Right.
for that.
Yeah. Damon?
Actually, I just wanted to point to Anne, who put a very interesting question in the comments.
Oh, thank you. Mosquitoes carry deadly diseases like dengue fever, malaria, West Nile, etc., kill thousands every year. Aren't we helping them to create more negative karma when we allow them to keep killing? They lead a miserable existence. Garchen Rinpoche in Chino Valley, Arizona, wanted some help with the parasites that were killing yaks. He said he believes they are miserable creatures who are creating a lot of negative karma. Yes, the first noble truth is dukkha. And animals and lower beings have limited potential for wisdom, and are maybe living an existence which is very dominated by fear and greed. uh, and they may have to be reborn in such a state for a long, long time. But we have got, we are human, and we have a capacity for wisdom. We should strive to develop this idea of harmlessness, ahimsa. That's one of the 3 right thoughts. It's a tremendous spiritual value. Now, I know that secondary to my existence as a human being, that other beings are being killed. Somebody brought some food from the grocery store. Thousands of beings could have been killed in the process of creating that head of broccoli. And in breathing, the thousands of many beings can be harmed and killed. So this is kind of like the nature of existence in samsara. But we strive as much as we can to develop our intention for harmlessness, and not to intentionally do harm. When I was a gardener, back when I was young, I used to use, the pesticides and so on. And then I found out that about like organic gardening, and there was like a completely different sort of like a balance in nature, and the vegetables that were like strong and healthy were able to put up with the parasites that were eating them. And I could go down into my garden, my vegetable garden, and I could lie down in the path in between the rows of the vegetables, and I could see like it was like a universe, a city of all the little insects that were like cohabiting and interacting with each other. Just the same thing, like we have got one of our Bodhi trees has got a disease, and should we we have a wise advisor who's skillful in those things, and says, well, that tree got stressed out last winter during the cold, and so we're gonna give it a lot of nutriment to feed it very well so that it becomes healthy. And when it becomes strong and healthy, then it's going to be able to take care of the fungus that's afflicting it by healthy balance in nature. So I'm not going to answer about this the morality of allowing dengue fever and malaria to exist in the world, or saying that people should not protect themselves. But my personal choice is to try as much as possible to keep myself safe without killing anybody. Okay.
It's about killing living beings.
Yes.
I'm kind of struggling with it a lot. Can you hear me? Yeah. So when, in theory, thank you very much. So what bothers me a lot, and I don't know how to approach it. In theory of Buddhism, the original teachings, right? They all live in the woods, in the forest, and no harm. It's all so beautiful. But let's say these days, well, let's say there is any monastery, it's, if to be honest, it built, on a dead animals. If when you build like monastery like a Abhayagiri, let's say, the excavators came and they excavated the tons of soil. They killed a lot of animals that used to live in there, right? Inevitably, but now they dwell in that space and they talk about and teach about peacefulness and non-harmfulness. So how does it correlate, So you go to this place, you hear no killing, let's be nice, but then you think, oh, but in order to build this, they actually killed millions of creatures living in that soil. So how does it correlate?
These are very good questions, and the challenge of hypocrisy, trying not to be a hypocrite, is so significant. As bhikkhus or bhikkhunis, we actually have a rule that we would not dig in the soil. So the monk did not stick the shovel into the ground and harm those worms. And yet, on behalf of the monastery, the donors, and the monk is even not allowed to say, dig that there. So, but then the supporters do these things for the monks, for the temple, and the monks accept that. So then, and then it has an even bigger impact if you look at the world today and consider climate change. The universe that we live in is affected by the genetic evolution of the species. And also there's a kind of a cultural evolution that has happened, that we're in a society where certain things are allowed to be seen and certain things you're not supposed to see them. And certain things can be spoken and certain things cannot be spoken. Where one kind of killing is a terrible crime and another kind of killing is celebrated as the act of a hero. This is the cultural evolution. And then as well, there is the material world. So my way of seeing it is that beings, we'll just consider humans, back to the earliest of the human species. We make millions of choices every day, like even something happening in the brain that I'm making a choice, like of what I'm looking at and what I'm seeing. I'm making choices of what to do, what to say. And those billions or gazillions of choices over so many period of time have created an inheritance, which is the material world that we have. And that makes me really sick. All of the pavement, all of the manufacturing, all of the use of fossil fuels in order for the humans to be able to live. For us to be able to populate all the corners of the world. Humans can live on the South Pole, or humans can live in the hottest of the deserts, as long as we have access to consume a lot of fossil fuel. And these choices are made, and it is possible, even historically. I've seen or read that there are certain islands that used to be a thriving ecosystem that has been turned into a completely barren pile of rocks. And the thing that changed it was impact of human society. So I'm both the a beneficiary and the victim of these gazillions of choices that have been made by humans through all the periods of time that came before, both in terms of the kind of karma that I have as being this particular individual, and then everything surrounding it. And it's a mixed bag. We've got the potential for wisdom, and we also have got the most tremendous potential for harm. I mean, what animal do you know of in the whole world can do as much harm as a human being can do? But we also can do good. And so the suffering that's arising from the unskillful choices that were made in the past, I need to acknowledge it, try to understand where it came from, not to be angry about dukkha, but instead to be inspired by dukkha, that like the heart cracks, and I don't want to make any more dukkha. I don't want to create any more dukkha. That's my intention. My intention is not to add any more dukkha to the world by making more unskillful choices. Why don't we sit for, let's take a 10-minute break and come back at 10:45. Then we'll have a bit of meditation.